Malik Thompson, a 28-year-old black man from Chicago, had spent years perfecting his craft as a tattoo artist. Despite growing up in a rough neighborhood, he avoided the streets and found solace in art, using ink to tell stories of struggle, identity, and perseverance. He co-owned Ink Legacy, a thriving tattoo parlor known for its detailed and culturally inspired designs. One evening, after finishing a late-night session, Malik left the shop to grab dinner at a small 24-hour diner down the block. He wore a hoodie and jeans, his arms and neck decorated with intricate tattoos, some inspired by African heritage, others dedicated to loved ones lost to violence. As he walked toward the diner, a police cruiser suddenly pulled up beside him, its headlights flashing. Officer Brian Whitaker, a 12-year veteran with a reputation for profiling, stepped out. His eyes immediately locked onto Malik's tattoos, particularly one on his forearm that faintly resembled an old gang insignia from decades past. "Hands where I can see them," Whitaker ordered, his voice sharp, his posture tense. Malik, confused but compliant, slowly raised his hands. "Is there a problem, officer?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. Instead of responding, Whitaker grabbed Malik's arm, inspecting his ink like it was evidence of a crime. "These look real familiar," the officer muttered. "Gang ties." Malik furrowed his brow. "Nah, man, I'm a tattoo artist. These are my own designs," he explained, keeping his cool. But Whitaker wasn't listening. He turned Malik roughly toward the squad car, pressing him against the cold metal. "I know a gang tattoo when I see one," he said smugly, twisting Malik's arm behind his back. "What set you with?" Anger flared in Malik's chest. "I just told you, I don't bang," he said through clenched teeth. "I run a business. Look me up." But Whitaker wasn't interested in explanations. He yanked out his radio, calling for backup. Within minutes, 2 more officers arrived, hands resting on their belts, ready for confrontation. The streetlights cast long shadows as a small crowd gathered nearby, murmuring among themselves. A few pulled out their phones, recording the scene. "You're under arrest for suspected gang activity," Whitaker announced as he snapped cold steel cuffs onto Malik's wrists. A wave of disbelief and fury crashed over him. "Are you serious?" Malik protested, struggling to keep his temper in check. "I didn't do anything." "Tell it downtown," Whitaker sneered, shoving him toward the patrol car. As Malik was forced into the back seat, his gaze met that of a young black teenager in the crowd, phone in hand, recording every moment. The kid's wide eyes reflected fear, anger, and an unspoken understanding. This wasn't the first time he'd seen something like this, and it wouldn't be the last. As the patrol car doors slammed shut, Malik inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of injustice settle over him. No matter how much he had worked to build a life beyond the stereotypes, in this moment, none of it mattered. The squad car rattled as it sped through the city streets, sirens blaring even though there was no emergency. Malik sat in the back seat, his wrists aching from the too tight handcuffs, his mind racing. His heart pounded with frustration, not just at the injustice but at the knowledge that this was happening not because of a crime, but because of his appearance. The tattoos that had built his career, that had been his form of self-expression, had been turned into a weapon against him. Officer Whitaker sat in the front, smirking as he spoke into the radio. "Got ourselves a real piece of work tonight," he said. "Gang banger covered in ink. Could be tied to something big." Malik gritted his teeth. "You don't even know who I am," he said, his voice steady but firm. Whitaker turned his head slightly, eyeing Malik through the rear-view mirror. "I don't need to. I know your type." Malik's jaw tightened. He had heard those words before. Your type. It was never about what you did, but what they assumed you were. He had worked his entire life to stay out of trouble, to be more than a statistic. Yet here he was, handcuffed in the back of a squad car, being treated like a criminal for simply existing in his own skin. The ride to the station felt endless. As they pulled into the lot, the reality of the situation hit him harder. This wasn't just harassment. Whitaker was trying to bury him in a system that wasn't designed to see men like him as innocent. The station was quiet when they arrived, but inside, the energy was tense. Whitaker walked him in, gripping his arm harder than necessary, as if Malik might make a run for it despite being cuffed. A few officers looked up as they entered. Some looked bored. Others, curious. One, an older black officer named Sergeant Daniels, frowned when he saw Malik. "What's this?" Daniels asked, looking between Whitaker and Malik. "Gang suspect. Found him lurking, covered in possible gang tattoos. Brought him in for questioning," Whitaker said smugly. Daniels crossed his arms. "And what exactly is the charge?" Whitaker shrugged. "Suspicion of criminal affiliation." Daniels exhaled sharply. "That's not a charge." Whitaker smirked. "Well, we'll see what we can dig up." Malik clenched his fists. "This wasn't about justice. It was about power. Can I get a phone call?" Malik asked, keeping his voice calm. Whitaker snorted. Yeah. After processing, he was led into a holding area where they took his mugshot. Malik stared directly into the camera, refusing to let his anger show. He had seen enough documentaries to know how they used mugshots to strip people of their dignity, to make them look guilty before they even had a chance to defend themselves. They fingerprinted him next. His hands, which had spent years crafting detailed tattoos, were pressed against cold ink pads, smudged onto a file that would now exist in a system where he didn't belong. After what felt like hours, Malik was finally led to a small interrogation room. The metal chair was cold against his back. He flexed his fingers, trying to get feeling back after the cuffs were removed. Minutes passed. Then, the door opened. Whitaker walked in, his expression smug. He dropped a file on the table and sat across from Malik. "So," he said, leaning back, "why don't you tell me the truth? Which gang are you running with?" Malik stared at him, incredulous. "I'm not in a gang." Whitaker smirked. "Come on, man. You're covered in ink. You expect me to believe all of those are just for show?" Malik's temper flared. "Yeah, I do. I'm a tattoo artist. I own a shop. Those tattoos? They're my own work." Whitaker nodded slowly, pretending to think it over. "Sure. And I bet you just happen to have a tattoo that looks exactly like an old vice lord's insignia." Malik shook his head, laughing bitterly. "You don't even know what that symbol means, do you?" Whitaker's smirk faded slightly. "That tattoo? It's a tribute to my brother, who was killed by gang violence. But you wouldn't care about that, would you?" Malik's voice was steady, but the anger was there, simmering beneath the surface. Whitaker leaned forward, his expression darkening. "Look, you can play innocent all you want, but I know a thug when I see one. Guys like you, always claiming you're just minding your business until we find out you're hiding something." Malik shook his head, laughing bitterly. "Nah, see, that's the problem. You saw a black man with tattoos and decided I was guilty. That's all it took." Whitaker's eyes narrowed. "Watch your mouth." Malik leaned forward, locking eyes with him. "Or what?" The air in the room felt heavy. The power struggle was clear. Whitaker wanted Malik to break, to lash out, to give him a reason to escalate. But Malik refused to give him the satisfaction. A knock on the door broke the tension. Sergeant Daniels stepped in, arms crossed. "Let him go," he said. Whitaker blinked. "Excuse me." Daniels held up a piece of paper. "I just spoke to his lawyer. And I did my own research. Malik Thompson runs Ink Legacy. No criminal record. No gang ties. He's exactly who he says he is. You have no reason to hold him." Whitaker's jaw clenched. Daniels cut him off. "Let him go." Malik exhaled as Whitaker slammed his hands on the table and stormed out. Daniels looked at him. "You good?" Malik nodded, though his chest was still tight. "Yeah. I just need to get out of here." Daniels nodded. "Go home, son. And get yourself a damn good lawyer." The cold night air hit Malik's face as he stepped out of the station, his hands still tingling from the tight handcuffs. A mix of frustration and exhaustion weighed on him, but one thought burned brighter than the rest. This wasn't over. He wasn't just going to let this slide. He had spent years proving that he was more than a stereotype, And yet, in a matter of minutes, one racist cop had tried to take all of that away. His phone buzzed as he walked toward the curb. It was his business partner, Carlos, a fellow tattoo artist who had been Malik's right-hand man since the early days of Ink Legacy. "Yo, man. I saw the video on Twitter. What the hell happened? You good?" Malik sighed, rubbing his face. "Yeah, I'm good. But I'm not letting this slide. Bro Whitaker arrested me for nothing. Tried to pin me as a gang member just because of my tattoos." Carlos cursed under his breath. "Man, you need to get a lawyer. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen." Malik had already made up his mind. "Already on it. I'll hit you up tomorrow, but right now, I need to clear my head." He ordered a rideshare home, his mind racing. He had seen cops like Whitaker ruin lives before, but he wasn't going to be another victim. The moment he got home, he opened his laptop and started looking up civil rights attorneys. Within minutes, he found Alicia Reynolds, a highly rated lawyer known for handling racial profiling and police misconduct cases. He shot her an email, attaching the viral video of his arrest along with a short description of what happened. By morning, she had already responded. Hourglass not done a week later. Malik sat in Alicia's office, going over the case. She was sharp, confident, and not afraid to take on the police department. "This is textbook racial profiling," she said, scanning the police report. "They didn't have probable cause to stop you, let alone arrest you. And the fact that Officer Whitaker has a history of complaints? This could turn into a serious case." Malik leaned forward. "I don't just want a settlement. I want him off the force. He can't keep doing this to people." Alicia nodded. "Then we're taking this to court. We'll file a lawsuit for false arrest, unlawful detention, and racial discrimination." Malik exhaled. This was bigger than him. If he didn't fight back, Whitaker would keep doing this to other people. Red triangle pointed up 2 weeks later. Retaliation begins. The lawsuit made headlines. The video of his wrongful arrest had already spread online, and once people found out he was suing the Chicago PD, it ignited a firestorm. Civil rights activists backed him. Local news stations covered his story. Even celebrities spoke out about it. And then, the harassment started. It began with cops patrolling his shop more often than usual, lingering outside like they were waiting for him to mess up. Then came the anonymous phone calls, threats telling him to drop the case. One night, as he was locking up Ink Legacy, he noticed a police cruiser parked across the street. Sitting inside, Whitaker. The officer smirked and tipped an imaginary hat. Malik's stomach twisted. This wasn't just about the lawsuit anymore. They were trying to scare him. He refused to back down. Instead, he started documenting everything. He installed security cameras around his shop, saved every threatening message, and stayed in close contact with Alicia. Then, one night, the real retaliation happened. Police car light the break-in. Malik was asleep when his phone started buzzing non-stop. Groggy, he grabbed it and saw a notification from his security system. Motion detected. Ink Legacy, 3:12 a.m. His heart pounded as he opened the live feed. 3 masked figures were inside his shop, smashing everything in sight. His equipment. His artwork. His furniture. They weren't there to steal, they were there to destroy. Malik jumped out of bed, dialing 911. "I need officers at my shop. There's a break-in happening right now." The dispatcher hesitated. "What's the address?" "Ink Legacy, 56th and Halsted." "Hurry." Silence. Then, the dispatcher said in a flat tone, "We'll send someone when available." Malik's blood ran cold. They weren't coming. He threw on his clothes, grabbed his keys, and sped to the shop himself. By the time he got there, the intruders were gone, but the damage was done. His shop was in ruins. Ink bottles shattered on the floor, canvases slashed, chairs overturned. Spray painted on the wall, in bold red letters, were the words, "Drop the case." Rage flooded Malik's veins. He pulled out his phone, filming everything. If they thought this would silence him, they were wrong. This wasn't just a lawsuit anymore. This was war. Malik stood in the wreckage of Ink Legacy, his chest rising and falling with slow, measured breaths. The neon sign above the entrance flickered weakly, casting broken light over the chaos. His hands trembled, not with fear, but with a burning rage that settled deep in his bones. They thought this would silence him. They were wrong. His fingers tightened around his phone as he filmed every inch of the destruction. The ink splattered across the floor like blood, the walls defaced with a clear warning. Drop the case. But he wasn't backing down. He turned the camera on himself, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. They tried to destroy my business, he said, his eyes locked onto the lens. They want me to shut up, to let them get away with this. But let me be clear, I'm not going anywhere. By the time he uploaded the footage online, it had already gone viral. Social media exploded with outrage. Civil rights groups, activists, and celebrities started speaking out, demanding justice. The phrase #JusticeForMalik began trending, flooding the internet with messages of support. But Malik knew the real fight was just beginning. Collision pressing charges. The legal battle begins. The next morning, Malik sat across from his lawyer, Alicia Reynolds, in her downtown office. This was an intimidation tactic, she said, scrolling through the evidence Malik had gathered. And the fact that 911 never responded? That's a clear sign of police corruption. Malik leaned forward, his jaw clenched. I don't just want Whitaker fired anymore. I want this whole system exposed. Alicia nodded. Then we need to go public in a big way. We're filing a federal civil rights lawsuit, not just against Whitaker, but against the Chicago Police Department itself. We'll demand an internal investigation into the officers who ignored your 911 call. Malik exhaled. He had wanted justice. Now, he wanted accountability. Loudspeaker the press conference, calling them out. 2 days later, Malik stood in front of a row of cameras, microphones set up in front of him. Behind him stood Alicia, members of civil rights groups, and dozens of supporters, including the young black teenager who had recorded his arrest. He cleared his throat and spoke, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. What happened to me isn't just about me, he began. It's about every black man who's ever been judged before he even opened his mouth. It's about every person who's been targeted for what they look like, where they come from, or the ink on their skin. This isn't just about one bad cop. It's about a system that lets them do this and get away with it. Well, I'm here to say, not this time. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Malik ignored them, walking away with purpose. Oncoming police car, the retaliation escalates. That night, as Malik drove home, he noticed something in his rearview mirror, headlights that had been following him for miles. His grip tightened on the wheel. He made a few turns, doubling back through side streets, but the car stayed behind him. His phone buzzed. Carlos. Yo, you good? Not sure, Malik muttered, glancing in the mirror. Then, flashing red and blue lights. Damn, Malik whispered. Bro, don't stop unless it's a well-lit area, Carlos warned. Malik nodded to himself, keeping his breathing steady. He slowed down and pulled into a gas station with security cameras. A cop car pulled in right behind him. The door opened, and out stepped Whitaker. Malik's stomach tightened. The officer sauntered up to the driver's side window, smirking. Evenin', Malik. Thought I'd check in on you. Make sure you're staying out of trouble. Malik gripped the steering wheel. Am I being detained? Whitaker tilted his head. Nah. Just thought we should have a little chat. He leaned in, voice low. You're making a lot of noise, Thompson. That ain't smart. Malik stared ahead, jaw tight. Am I free to go? Whitaker chuckled. For now. But let me give you some friendly advice. This fight you're pickin'? You won't win. Malik didn't respond. He simply hit record on his phone and held it up where Whitaker could see. The cop's smirk faltered slightly before he took a step back. Drive safe, he said before walking back to his squad car. Malik's hands shook as he pulled away, his heart hammering. This wasn't over. Not even close. Bomb the breaking point. A new plan. The next morning, Alicia stormed into Malik's shop, fuming. I just got off the phone with the DA's office. Whitaker's been protected for years. This isn't his first time pulling this crap. He's got a whole list of excessive force complaints, all buried. Malik's pulse quickened. So we bring it to light. Alicia's eyes met his. We need a whistleblower. Someone from inside the system. That's when Malik thought back to Sergeant Daniels, the one officer who had spoken up for him. Could he be the key to taking Whitaker down for good? Malik exhaled. He was ready for war. Malik sat in his shop, the air thick with the scent of cleaning chemicals as Carlos and a few other friends worked to restore Ink Legacy to its former glory. But no matter how much they scrubbed, the damage had been done. The spray-painted warning, "Drop the case," had been scrubbed away, but its meaning still lingered. His phone buzzed. It was Sergeant Daniels. This was it. Daniels had been the only cop at the station who seemed to have a conscience. He had seen firsthand how Whitaker operated and had been furious when Malik was brought in with no cause. If anyone on the inside was willing to talk, it was him. Malik answered. Daniels. Meet me in an hour, the sergeant said, his voice low. Somewhere private. Automobile the meeting, breaking the silence. An hour later, Malik pulled into the parking lot of an old diner on the south side, its flickering neon sign casting a dull red glow over the pavement. Daniels was already there, seated in a booth near the back. Malik slid into the seat across from him. You wouldn't have called me if you didn't have something. Daniels exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. This whole department's dirty, Malik. What happened to you? That's just the tip of the iceberg. Malik leaned forward. Tell me everything. Daniels hesitated before lowering his voice. Whitaker's not just some random racist cop. He's protected. He's part of a group of officers, guys who cover for each other, bury complaints, make evidence disappear. Internal Affairs has been sitting on multiple reports against him, but nothing sticks because someone upstairs keeps sweeping it under the rug. Malik's stomach turned. How deep does this go? Daniels glanced around before continuing. There are at least a dozen officers involved in this. And it's not just about harassment. They plant evidence. They make people disappear into the system. And when someone fights back, they retaliate. Just like they did to you. Malik swallowed hard. And you've known this whole time? Daniels's jaw tightened. You think I like working with these people? But I got a family, man. If I go against them, they'll come after me too. Malik met his eyes. So why are you here? Daniels sighed. Because I'm tired. Because I saw what they did to you. Because I know that if we don't expose them now, they'll keep doing this. And next time, someone might not walk away from it. Malik nodded slowly. So help me take them down. Daniels hesitated. Then, finally, he said, I have files. Reports that never made it to Internal Affairs. Complaints, footage, body cam videos that were deleted from the system, but not before I made copies. Malik's heart pounded. You have proof. Daniels nodded. Enough to burn the whole department down. Fire going public. The interview that shook the city. 2 days later, the world changed. Malik, Alicia, and Daniels sat across from a well-known journalist for a live televised interview. The station had been hesitant to air it at first, but after the viral footage of Malik's wrongful arrest, the public demanded answers. The cameras rolled. Daniels spoke first. I've been a Chicago police officer for 20 years, and I can tell you, there is a system in place that protects bad cops, that allows men like Officer Whitaker to abuse their power without consequence. The room was silent. Daniels pulled out a USB drive. These are internal police reports, video evidence, complaints that were buried. The department knew what Whitaker was doing. They covered for him. They let this happen to Malik and countless others for years. The journalist leaned in. Are you saying there's corruption inside the Chicago PD? Daniels didn't blink. I'm saying it's bigger than just corruption. It's a culture. And it needs to end. Malik spoke next. I was arrested because of my tattoos. Because a cop decided I looked guilty before I even opened my mouth. And when I fought back, they tried to silence me. He turned to the camera, his voice steady. But I'm not afraid. And I'm not backing down. Within hours, the interview went viral. The city erupted. Protesters flooded the streets, demanding action. Politicians were forced to respond. The Department of Justice announced an official investigation into Chicago PD's handling of racial profiling cases. And just like that, the system started to crack. Oncoming police car Whitaker's fall, justice arrives. 3 days later, Whitaker was arrested. Malik watched the footage on his phone, Whitaker being led out of the precinct in handcuffs. His face twisted in anger, but there was no smirk this time. No smug arrogance. For once, he was the one being taken away. News reports confirmed that multiple officers were now under investigation for misconduct, tampering with evidence, and abuse of power. The department that had tried to silence Malik was now on trial itself. Collision the turning point. A new future. Malik stood outside Ink Legacy, staring at the fresh coat of paint, the new sign hanging above the door. His shop had been rebuilt, but his life would never be the same. Carlos walked up beside him, arms crossed. So what now? Malik exhaled. Now, we keep pushing. We make sure this fight doesn't stop with me. Carlos smirked. Guess you really did burn the whole system down, huh? Malik chuckled, shaking his head. Not yet. But we just lit the first match. And with that, he turned and walked inside, ready for the next battle.